Are you around? Yes. Kindly come and do the welcome address. Thank you.
All right, thank you, John. As I said yesterday, we're really happy that you've chosen to have this event here at Howard. It's an important technology, and we look forward to being a partner with you in its emergence. I'd like to introduce the Interim Dean of the College of Engineering and Architecture, Dr. John Anderson.
Good morning. Good morning. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Todd for this invitation and then for Howard having the opportunity to host the Black Blockchain Summit. It's an exciting time in so many ways in technology, and blockchain and related technologies are part of that. One quick story, I had a student who worked with me on a grant on something completely unrelated, but he had an interest in computing and technology and et cetera. And I was at a meeting, the AMI conference, which is Advancing Minorities' Interest in Engineering, and I met up with some researchers from IBM, and we were talking, and like so many ways you find out that you know somebody in common. So they said, do you know Kalanji? I said, yeah, Kalanji worked with me on a grant. And he said, well, Kalanji's now doing blockchains and cryptocurrency and all these different things that we weren't even really thinking about at that time when he was a student, but now he's in the field that all of you value and are working in. So I find that very exciting to see how Howard University can prepare students in something unrelated, and then they kind of work their way into something that's very interesting and very exciting. But welcome, have a great summit, and enjoy your time here at Howard University. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dean. I would like to introduce Kezia Ashe to give, Kezia Ashe? Yeah, Kezia Ashe to give her welcome remarks. Karibu.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Keisha Ash. I'm currently the president of the National Society of Black Engineers, DC Professionals Chapter. And I am here on behalf of the membership to welcome you all to this summit and also really just affirm our support of all the work that's being done here and outside of these walls to help in alignment with our mission. So our mission is to increase the number of culturally responsible Black engineers who excel academically, succeed professionally, and positively impact the community. And so I want to emphasize the positively impact the community aspect. Of course, we're all here. We know how important it is to make sure that we're using our voices, our resources, our connections to ensure that not just folks in our age ranges, but more specifically, and really where my heart is, the young people are encouraged and enabled to gain access to these technologies, to these opportunities, so that they can functionalize them within their own lives, and they can use these technologies to solve the problems that are important and relevant to them. And so, as the president of NSBE DC, I encourage all of you to, reach out to me, reach out to our board members if you're interested in working with us as we, utilize all the channels that we have. So we primarily do a lot of our work through NSBE Junior chapters, and we're in the process of setting up additional chapters this year so that our students who are in middle school and high school can also gain awareness and access to the technologies that are driving our current space and the future, of the world that we know it. So just want to say thank you all for this time to come before you, and please reach out to me. Email address is president@nsbdc.org if you're interested in further engaging with our organization, as well as utilizing yourself as a role model, as a mentor, as a teacher in the community. So thank you very much. The National Society of Black Engineers. NSB. Okay. NSB.
president of DC NASB, or?
Yeah, the DC chapter.
So what's your email address again?
President@NSBDC.org.
Oh,
Yeah.
president, that's NASB DC.
And I talked to so many people who said, oh yeah, I used to be a NSB vendor when I was in undergrad and everything. We're still here. We just had our first general fund meeting last night, Pat's house. We had a cookout on Sunday. We have so many activities that are geared towards bringing our community together. So if you're interested in SBDC, if you go all the way to the bottom, you can sign up for the newsletter or email me. We'll get you connected. Thank you.
All right, give Kesha a round of applause, please. All right. So our first speaker is, in my mind, a controversial figure. Probably the most famous black personality in the cryptocurrency space. And I'm sure you're very interested to see who he is. He's a fellow African, Ugandan, but raised in America. His name is Ian Balina. Karibu, Ian.
Thank you very much. Hello everybody, how are you? Good morning. Okay, first of all, I just want to say thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure. This is my first official time here on Howard campus. As somebody who's been in DC for over 20 years, I've never really gotten a reason to be here per se, even though I went to GW. But now I can say I've been to Howard University. So thank you for that. Okay, so I just want to understand how the whole room is, right? So who here owns cryptocurrency? Show of hands. Okay. Who's been owning cryptocurrency for more than 6 months? Keep your hands up if it's more than 12 months. 24 months. Oh, some hodlers in here. Who was part of the whole crypto space back in 2013? Oh, the OG over here. Somebody over there as well. Okay, very interesting, very interesting. And for everybody else here who's not a hodler or investor, what makes you be part of the crypto space? Just kind of blurt out. Are you in this for the entrepreneur? Okay.
Supply chain.
Supply chain. What does that mean?
Freedom. Blockchain as it relates to supply chain.
Okay. So do you work in the blockchain space? Are you
I'm a professor.
professor? Okay. So professor, entrepreneur, somebody said freedom?
I teach.
Musician?
I teach elementary school students and university students.
Okay, so teaching.
Elementary,
Elementary? Okay.
and university.
And university.
Elementary is the focus.
Okay, very nice, very nice. Wow, so we have a very diverse room here. And I think that's really the beauty in the blockchain and cryptocurrency space. So who here knows me? Who has seen my content before? Okay, a good amount of people here. Who here thinks I'm controversial? Okay, well, never believe anything you hear on Twitter, especially from anonymous people. I'll just keep it at that. All right? But yeah, so I'll just kind of tell you my story for those who don't know. Right? I'm Ian Balina. As you mentioned, I was born in Kampala, Uganda. I came to America when I was 8 years old. My parents came to America for an opportunity. My dad came here to pursue his PhD at Penn State. Then we moved down here to Maryland, went to high school in Maryland, went to GW, majored in bachelor's and master's in computer engineering. I'm an engineer. I was actually talking to her about NSB. I was part of NSB, National Society of Black Engineers, and that really changed my life in college. Like that was really, because I was on a scholarship and I had to really maintain a particular grade point average. And NSB really put me on, right? And I actually have a brother of mine who's a freshman now in college, and the first thing I told him was join NSB, right? Because he's also an engineer. But so I graduated grad school, joined Deloitte, worked there for 3 months as an IT consultant here in DC, actually at their offices in Roslyn. Then I realized, you know what? I don't like consulting. Consulting was the worst. I say that because as an engineer, I liked being efficient. But as a consultant, we bill by the hour. So having to sit there and I would finish my work at 1 p.m., but I would stay in the office till 8 p.m. because the rule was you don't leave until the boss leaves. So I would sit there just doing busy work, trying to look busy for 6 or 7 hours. And after a month or so, I was like, I cannot do this. I'm out of here. So I was kind of blessed because as I was working at Deloitte, I got an offer from IBM to join them as part of their sales team. Their sales team was a sales engineer. And me being an entrepreneur, I did a bunch of, I had this company I began back in college called Leximo. Didn't really go anywhere, but it taught me the skills of really building an idea, evangelizing the idea, and trying to sell that vision and that product. And the skills I learned from that, I was able to parlay into getting a job at IBM, and that became my dream job. That was the perfect job I could ever ask for. I would work at home pretty much the whole week. Then I would have travel every 2 weeks or so. I would travel to client sites. I would cover the Mid-Atlantic, so from Philadelphia all the way down to South Carolina. And to me, it was the best because I didn't have a boss looking over my shoulder telling me what to do. And having that freedom was everything. Then kind of fast forward into that, I had a friend of mine, Eric, also in the blockchain space now as an entrepreneur. He went to Bowie State. So I met up with him. Yeah, Bowie in the house. I met up with him, I think it was in San Francisco. And I was just kind of catching up with him, and he told me about Bitcoin and crypto space. And to me, I just thought this whole space was just the dark web, a bunch of bad actors, people trying to scam you, drug deals on the dark web. And he's like, Ian, I know IBM is doing lots of great things in the blockchain space. Can you put me in touch with the director of blockchain at IBM? I said, that's a very big ask. Why do you want me to put you in touch with this guy? I mean, I don't even know this guy, right? So I began grilling him about Bitcoin and the whole space. And then he told me, yeah, he got into Bitcoin when he was working here in DC as a blockchain developer, and they were looking to integrate payments and transactions, and he just kind of went down this rabbit hole. And then he told me he was launching a crypto fund. And I looked at this guy, I was like, you're 26, 27 years old. What are you doing launching a cryptocurrency hedge fund? Because in my mind, when I think hedge fund, I think like old guys on Wall Street. So when I kind of talked to him about this, I was like, this is interesting. Then me being a businessman and a numbers guy, I'm pretty direct. I guess that's just the part of being an engineer. We don't really, talk around in circles. I said, hey, how much money are you making with this Bitcoin thing? He said he was making 200% just hodling or holding Bitcoin. And to me, as somebody who I had a nice appetite for risk. I'd done investing before. I'd actually dabbled in penny stocks and just gotten wrecked, as they say in the crypto space, right? Before crypto. So I dabbled in marijuana penny stocks. I think back when I was working at Deloitte and IBM, like my first year at IBM, when they were when it was just kind of getting legalized in different countries and places here places here in America. So I was trying to be at the forefront of that wave with the penny stock investing, and I got wrecked. I lost money to a point I got so jaded with investing. I said, you know what? I'm done. Why put money in somebody else's company when I can invest in myself and build my own company? So I went back to being an entrepreneur for about 3-4 years or so. Now, so when he told me about that, 200%, I said, I have to try this out just once. I've always prided myself in being what I call a scientist or engineer, right, in real life, where I don't say no to anything unless I have real-world data that tells me otherwise. So I always try to test everything and know whether this works or not. So I said, okay, you know what, let me just test this out, get real-world data, as opposed to just kind of pontificating whether this is legit or not. So I signed up on Coinbase that very same week, put $100 into Bitcoin, $100 into Ethereum, and I said, okay, you know what, now I own some crypto. But I knew the first rule of investing is you have to know what you're investing in. So one thing I've always done whenever I want to kind of learn about something new, I go into Amazon.com and I find the top 2 best books in that category or space. So I just went on Amazon, typed in Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, and the best 2 books at that time were called Digital Gold and the Age of Cryptocurrency. So I got those books, the audiobooks, because I don't really read that much anymore, because I'm just always busy and traveling. So I just got the audiobooks, read those books over the course of 3 months or so. And it really gave me a nice history of the space, where the space came from, the actors in it, where it is now, and where it was going. And those 2 books really were the guide and the introduction for me to the crypto space. So as I was doing that, I was also just keeping up to date on articles in the crypto space on sites like CoinDesk, Cointelegraph. These are daily news sites for crypto news. And after I read the books, I said, you know what, guys, this is it. I believe now. I had what I call my coming to Jesus moment in crypto, right? I said, I'm a believer now, right? I can see it. But it didn't really happen until January 2018, because after I became more educated, I was willing to invest my money in crypto, right? Because everybody says only invest what you're willing to lose. So at that point in time, I was only willing to lose $200, right? Now that I had more knowledge on the space, after getting my nice sales commission from IBM that year, I put $2,500 into Ethereum and Bitcoin. And in a week and a half, it doubled. I said, holy cow. Guys, sell everything. We're going all in. And because that same week, the prices of crypto went up because Ethereum announced a partnership. They announced the Ethereum Enterprise Alliance. That partnered with Microsoft, Citibank, JP Morgan, all these big Fortune 500 companies that really give it social proof and the credibility. And I said, this is the fastest money I've ever made. And I was a hustler, man. I was doing everything. I was renting my home out on Airbnb as I was traveling for work. I was an entrepreneur. I had a video production company. I had so many things on the side. But I was like, this was the most passive income I'd ever made, that quickly. So I saw the potential. And that year, I also had a goal of quitting my job at IBM, because it was a very good job, but I realized that I always wanted to have my own independence and my own source of income. So I knew that I had to find a way to quit the job. And my first 3 years in IBM, I worked as a sales engineer, covering the IBM Hybrid Cloud, IBM Analytics, and IBM Watson. And I loved it. But the last year, I changed over to become an IBM sales executive. And although the money was much better, I was able to basically quadruple my income that year just by switching over from being an engineer to sales. So I kind of went over to the dark side, we call it. I basically sold out as an engineer. The money was good, but it was stressful. The sales culture was very stressful, especially as a minority and being the only minority there. Because everybody's fighting for large commission checks and lots of backstabbing and sabotaging and people fighting for deals. I just knew that I would turn gray. I would get old. I would get very, very old. Kind of like that picture of Obama after 2 terms in the White House. That was going to be me in like 2 years. And I said, I can't live in this environment anymore. And I think this is just kind of part of my personality. I'm always willing to sacrifice the good I have to take a step backwards to go to great. Kind of like the book From Good to Great. And I think it's something everybody has to be able to do, right? Because, I mean, here I was, a young black man. I was 28, 29. My last year in IBM, I made almost $500,000. Everybody, my parents, other coworkers were like, you're crazy to give that up. There are people who are twice your age who don't even make half that money. But I said, you know what? I'm willing to give all this up, to go back to zero, because it wasn't something that I thought was good for me long term, right? So I basically bet on myself that year and said, you know what? By the end of the year, I'm going to quit my job no matter what and go out as an entrepreneur. So I looked at everything I was doing and I said, okay, let me 80-20 everything, right? Basically, per Pareto's law. What's making me the most money in the most efficient manner? It was crypto. So I went all in on cryptocurrency, right? You could say timing was definitely the key as well, right? I have a knack for good timing. But I went all in, began trying to find an edge, Because back then, I was mainly trading. Then I went to a conference, kind of like this, and I met people. And I always just talked to people, and I said, okay, who's actually making money? Because this was a crypto conference for investors. I said, okay, who's here that's successful and is somebody I'm trying to model myself after? And I would talk to them and just kind of ask them, okay, what made you successful? And back then I noticed almost everybody who I met who was a crypto millionaire. And this was a term, this was something I just kind of discovered, that these people were early in crypto, but almost all of them made their money from getting in early at the ground floor. They weren't late. They weren't really making money from trading or arbitrage. They're just making money from, back then, what are called ICOs. So I looked into this ICO thing. I said, you know what? This is it. I began investing in ICOs, tossing money at anything that could walk that was an ICO. And that didn't really work. Then I said, okay, you know what? Let's go back to the drawing board and figure this out. So me being an engineer again, that year I had been featured in the Wall Street Journal for a model I built with IBM Watson to predict March Madness brackets. Right? So this was just something I did for fun. And I said, you know what? Let's do this with crypto. Let's try to build a model and try to predict the price of crypto, or predict which ICO is going to do well. So I just made a Google spreadsheet, gathered a bunch of different data points, and basically tried to find patterns and insights in the data. And I began doing this online via YouTube. I'm a big fan of Gary Vaynerchuk, and he says, document your truth, right? Basically, just document the process, kind of like a diary, right? So I would just vlog or do a live stream on my YouTube channel. Back then, I had less than 500 people twice a week, just kind of as this crazy scientist or data guy, just talking about my spreadsheet, saying, hey, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. If you think it's helpful, do you have any comments, any insights? Just trying to put myself out there. Then, a month into it, I basically had my rankings, right, of what I thought were the best ICOs at that time. And the top ranked ICO I had was a project called District 0x, DNT. It came out trading, and that same month, it pulled what's known as a 24x, I think at the all-time high. Basically, $1,000 turned to $24,000. And I was like, wow, this is actually working. Then the next ranked project on there was called 0x, and that did a 10x. So $1,000 turned to 10 grand. I said, wow, I'm on fire. Then I said, okay, maybe we're onto something here. And that's when really my name kind of blew up in the crypto space. I kind of became known as the ICO guy. And long story short, 4 months, actually, yeah, 3 months later, I quit my job at IBM. Because at that point, I had about $250,000 in crypto. And I said, I'm out. Because I knew that this was really growing into something bigger and bigger. And I had enough income at that time to really sustain myself. Then, by the end of the year, I became a crypto millionaire. And one of the cool things about that was that happened when me and my good friend Hen, also from DC, who actually went to Howard, by the way, Hinak, I'm not sure if you guys know him, then Ugo, went to school with me at GW. We were in Tokyo, Japan for a crypto meeting. And that's when we all became millionaires. And we all got into crypto at the same time. And all of us were black. And we posted a picture on our IG or Twitter, everywhere basically. And we're like 3 young brothers that made it, right? And we all quit our jobs that same year because we all had that same hunger, right? And to us, that was really very inspirational, right? And then crypto is a big roller coaster. So fast forward to around, I would say, spring 2018, right? Bitcoin had gone up all the way to like 19,000, almost 20,000. Everybody in crypto was on top of the world. Myself as well. But then I got a shock of my life, right? which is kind of one of the downsides of crypto. I got hacked. Yeah, they took $2.5 million from me, just like that. just like that. And the crazy thing was, I got hacked during my live stream. So the whole world was watching. All right, so I'm also known for that. All right? And so I've been to heaven and to hell. All right? And the crazy thing was, when that hack happened, right, I noticed something unusual was happening on my wallets, because people in the comments were telling me, hey, Ian, we see on the blockchain history that the money is being transferred from your wallets, because at that point, people had basically shared my wallets publicly online, where anybody could view them, right? And I end the live stream abruptly. I go upstairs to my room. I close the door. I double check everything. I'm like, yeah, I got hacked. But to me, the way I'm very stoic in nature, to a point where people in the public community, in the crypto space, thought I faked my own hack, right? Because I wasn't really emotional, right? For me, I just kind of, when I was in my room at that moment, I said, that's an L. Like, they definitely got me. Like, can't really do much about that. But I knew the person I was inside, and I knew that I was going to bounce back bigger and better than ever. Because I was like, I'm not going to let these hackers take away my essence, right? The person that makes me who I am. Because they're trying to hack me to basically kind of like shut me down, right? Because at that point in time, I was kind of the poster child of the crypto space. I mean, here I was, a young black man on top of the crypto world, who came out of nowhere. At that point, my stature was bigger than even the crypto OGs, right? And I got in lots of comments online about me being this African prince, this scammer, what have you. You know, the typical stereotypes, right? But for me, that didn't really bother me, because my community loved me, and I knew I was making a difference from the people I met on my crypto world tour. But going back to the hack, right? To me, I just knew, okay, this is bad, but this is just a way for me to kind of bounce back and make this something even bigger and better. Because at that point, I knew how to make the money. So I wasn't really concerned about making the money per se, right? Because I knew I was a survivor. I was a hustler, right? I had made money in IBM, I had made money as an entrepreneur, and I had made money investing in crypto. So I knew, okay, you know what? This sucks. Let me figure out a way to bounce back from this, right? So the next 3 months or so, I was just in grind mode, right? And I was just working with my team, trying to find out different ways. I had to become very innovative, right? And then fast forward to about three months or so. At that point in time, we got our biggest corporate sponsorship to date. Actually, our first one. So a company called KuCoin came to me. They were trying to bring me on as this affiliate ambassador or what have you, to basically share this affiliate link of ours, and we'll give you some points, right? At this point, I was in survival mode. So I said, no, I'm not here for that affiliate stuff. So I turned to my IBM sales skills I learned from being a sales executive, and really me and my team put together a well laid out pitch to them. About basically to sum up the pitch at that time, we said we want you guys to be Nike to Michael Jordan, right? I want to be the Michael Jordan to your Nike, right? Because we saw the space was really adopting the influencer model. So we convinced them. Actually, we spoke to several exchanges. We spoke to Binance, we spoke to OKX, KuCoin. This is actually the first time I shared this publicly. But at this point, I mean, it's kind of over 1 year, right? And they came back, and they gave me a corporate sponsorship, which was well worth over 7 figures. We think this was the biggest influencer deal in crypto history at that time. I mean, obviously, it's kind of hard to have the numbers, right? But I mean, it was a 7-figure deal. Like, because the firm I was working with represents people in Hollywood, like the Kanyes, the Beyonce, DJ Khaled. I had them on my team helping me, bringing in new business, right? They basically handle all my biz stuff, my business development. So at that point in time, the deal was almost the same amount as the money I lost in the hack. So in 3 months, I had made the money back like that. And while the public was speculating on what happened, whether I faked my hack to avoid paying taxes on crypto or what have you, I was just grinding. And to me, that really showed me my character, because I knew that when my back was against the wall, I could always find a way to bounce back. So fast forward into all of that, and 6 months, by the end of the year, right? Because at this point, we're doing a crypto world tour. So we did 35 countries in 12 months, going around hosting events, kind of like this, events in London. We had over 1,000 people in London. We were like rock stars. 1,000 people. At one point, we walked to the venue for the conference, and there was a line outside the street to come see us talk. And people were like, is this a concert or something? They said, no, it's crypto, Ian Bellina. I mean, this is basically 2018. Went to Russia, everywhere. Then ended the tour in Africa. And I think that was really the best part of the whole trip, because it was the first time me going back to Uganda after over 21 years. I went back there, and just being there and seeing everybody in the crowd who looked like my mother, my brother, my sister, family, who looked like me and was there for blockchain and crypto. And there was just something in the air that I hadn't seen anywhere else in the other 35 countries I had been to. So kind of fast forward as I kind of wrap this up. So by the end of the year, everything was good. Then out of nowhere, the crypto market kept on tanking and tanking. And then the corporate sponsor chose not to renew the deal for 2019, right? Just kind of based on the market tanking and their budget constraints. And I was basically kind of now back against the wall trying to find ways to innovate, right? Because in crypto, you always have to keep on innovating. The space changes so much. It evolves almost every 2 to 3 months, right? You just blink an eye and you'll be out of business in crypto. Things happen that quickly. But throughout everything, I've kind of learned the ups and downs, and now I'm taking everything I've learned as an investor, as a content creator, and now I'm putting this into a brand new venture I'm launching called Token Metrics, right? So now I've been working on this for the last 1 year, taking what really brought value to my community, the spreadsheet, where I would share my investments and my rankings, and now building a platform that's more dynamic. So kind of think of this as kind of like a Morningstar for crypto, or like a Bloomberg for crypto, where the retail investor, I've learned in the last 2 to 3 years, there are 3 main things that investors get wrong, right? Because you have to first pick the right investment, which is very hard to do. Then you have to buy at the right time, and you have to sell at the right time. And most investors get one of those 3 things wrong. They may buy the right asset, for example, Bitcoin, right? Everybody knows Bitcoin is king, right? Bitcoin has the best fundamentals. But if you bought Bitcoin in 2017, December 2017 or January 2018, at $19,000, you lost money. Doesn't matter how good it was. Doesn't matter whether it's a diamond or not. Maybe if you're dollar cost averaging, your costs kind of go down, right? But most people I know, the average investor is not dollar cost averaging, right? When they put the money in and it goes down, they don't want to put money back in again, right? So with our platform, we're trying to make this simple for the average investor, right? So we're trying to help them find the right investment to make in crypto. So we have a new team. So I've kind of learned from my lessons, my mistakes, because just like everybody, I also lost some money as the market came down. And I've had my big public failures, like Sparkster, right? Sparkster was a project that basically scammed the whole crypto space, but mainly me, because they leveraged my platform and my audience and my community to raise a bunch of money and basically overpromise and not deliver anything. And that made me go back to the drawing board and say, okay, what mistakes have we made? How can we avoid having this happen again? So we brought on blockchain developers from JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, brought on traders, basically building a better team with lots of other subject matter experts around us to now create a better system of scoring projects, right, from fundamentals. So now we have developers going through the code, testing and trying to break everything, talking with the CEOs, the CTOs, hosting our own nodes, doing test transactions, all of this before even really scoring the project, right? So now we score the projects on three main things, right? The fundamentals, right? So kind of like on Wall Street, the fundamental analyst, we score the fundamentals. Then we have the technical analysis. This is now mainly automated with software. And then we also have the technology, right? Doing a very in-depth code review. Then we get all of this and combine this into one single holistic score, right? And all this is going to be available on tokenmetrics.com. The platform is currently in private testing. We're not sure when we'll launch yet, but ideally when we launch, we'll probably have a free model where our audience can go there and get IEO reviews, because that's kind of the thing now, right? But the idea is for us to filter through all the scams, right? Because that's kind of what my community knew me for. And the space is definitely getting more and more saturated. And for us, we're trying to bring a data-driven approach, which is what we're known for, and now also add on machine learning and all these other capabilities that are typically reserved for the institutional investors as opposed to the retail investor. We're trying to bring this to the average person so they have as much data and information to make the best investment, and really to simplify what they're doing, right? To help them find the right investment, buy at the right time, and sell at the right time. And we think if we can get all those three right, then we can help people make money and avoid taking L's, as we say. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Let me know if you have any questions. Thank you. Yeah?
Okay, so I work at Bowie State University, and my name is Ryan Cooper, and Ian, we met 2 years ago through Timmy and them down in Africa, I believe. But I just wanted to reach out and say, would you be willing to stop through Bowie State to help grow this crypto? Because we have a following. I have a blockchain association there, and I know you and you know me, and I would love to bring you through and just grow this thing, brother.
Yeah, let's do it. Just, after this, give me your contact info or Telegram, right? Give me the details for the event, and I'm definitely down to go. I'm based in DC, so anybody in DC, I'm always around. Unless I'm traveling, I'm typically here.
Do you have any, I'm Deidre McIntyre, Black Widow Cryptocurrency. Do you have any suggestions for people who maybe would never consider being an accredited investor in traditional stocks? Is there any pathway for someone to be an accredited just a cryptocurrency, or is Token Metrics going to offer some type of pathway to get more people to be accredited investors to hit the funding?
I mean, getting more people to become accredited investors is going to be tough because there are income requirements and net worth requirements, right? But the idea is because just kind of being honest with you, one thing I've learned because I have a large retail investor base. I also have a large hedge fund or institutional investor base as well, but that's always small, right? But one thing I've learned from the average retail investor, right? Unfortunately, a lot of them in crypto just blindly invest in anything. Anything people influential like me or others mention or talk about, right? Even if you tell them to do their own research, not everybody's going to do that, right? So with us, we're trying to see how we can kind of solve that problem. But we want to make sure we do it in a very compliant fashion with the SEC and everything, right? So we're actually working on some things to really innovate the space, right? We can't really discuss most of it publicly yet, right? But we're trying to do everything by the book, right? In the most legal, compliant fashion. I mean, I've gone almost broke just on legal fees of trying to get this qualified and approved. But I would say for the average investor to kind of get them into crypto, it starts with education, right? Education as they get more comfortable, and also helping manage their risk, right? So for example, one of my biggest public failures at this point has been Sparkster, right? Because at that point in crypto, although the market was kind of going down, my community trusted me a lot to a point where lots of people around the world would just blindly invest in anything I had ranked, right? And unfortunately, I had that project ranked very high, and lots of people just blindly invested, right? I've heard stories of people going to the banks to get loans to invest, And this project, when it came out, after 1 year of stalling, when it came out, it went down 95%. So lots of people lost money. Myself, everybody, it definitely did tarnish my image, right? So I've learned a lot probably from that over anything else, especially how retail investors think and their mindset. And I definitely understand why the SEC has these very stringent requirements for catering to retail investors, right? And to me, it's been our biggest learning lesson, but also it teaches us the psyche of the retail investor, how they think, right? Because when people are blindly investing or getting loans or what have you, or maxing out their credit card to invest into crypto based on what somebody said on YouTube, it is definitely a problem, right? And that's something even myself I can definitely admit, and it's something we have to rectify, right? So I think risk management is really one of the big things for crypto, right? People treat cryptocurrency as gambling, right? I've seen lots of different Telegram groups, because most people in crypto are on Telegram. Lots of different Telegram groups where people would just send money to somebody halfway across the world via crypto or smart contract to invest in a pool or ICO, and lots of them got scammed. There have been lots of exit scams, Ponzi schemes, what have you. BitConnect is also famous, right? People have been very blindly trusting in crypto because the space moves so fast and people are willing to risk it all to make money, right? And it's definitely very unfortunate, and I think it's something that has to be managed, and I definitely understand why, especially here in America, the regulation is very, very tough for crypto companies because of that. And I think it's definitely justified, right? Because now, for example, we had the first SEC-qualified security token offering, Blockstack and Props. And the stuff they had to go through, like just going through their offering statement, is almost 100 pages long, maybe even longer. And I think for some people, they may say this is against what crypto stands for because it's not decentralized and the SEC is playing police. But there's so many scams in the space that I think, and with the average retail investor so naive, right? I think it's something that's needed to protect them, right? I'm not sure if that answered your question, but that's.
My question was more like, many people in the Black community, many people were not at that level to be. So what's the pathway to get to that?
To make the money to invest in crypto.
No, to be a accredited investor. Is there going to be any pathway that people? I'm only interested in crypto. I'm not just interested in being an accredited investor in other areas.
Yeah, I mean.
So I didn't know if Token Metrics was going to focus on the education component.
Yeah, so we're different from most platforms in that because we have experience creating content, we'll be creating content as well as the platform, right? So we have a platform already, right? But it's still in testing. But we also have the social media platform. So if you go on our Telegram channel, just search Token Metrics, or just go on YouTube or Twitter, Token Metrics, right? This is our platform, and it's all purely on education. And we're trying to do it in a totally different manner because people kind of have known me as being a big shill, right? Even though I think everybody in crypto is a shill, but I was kind of known as the king of shills because I was very promotional, right? With this platform, we're trying to do everything by the book, zero shill, fully transparent, full disclosures on everything. So we're basically going back to the ground floor and starting all over in a very compliant fashion. We have security lawyers working with us and kind of have gone through and looked at everything to make sure we're doing everything in a fashion where there's no touting, no shilling, and we're just fully offering value to investors, whether retail or otherwise.
After you got hacked, how did you hide your wallet?
After I got hacked, I got hardware wallets. I mean, that was a big mistake I definitely made, right? I was definitely very naive, right? Even though I was a public figure, I just never thought they would get to me, right? I guess I was cocky or just busy. I mean, I think to me the issue was I was traveling a lot and having to go and travel this and that, all right? And I felt paper wallets were more secure at that time. But I got hacked because I had copies of my keys on my computer. And when they got access to my computer, they got to them.
I just wanted to quickly respond anything outside of that, then you have to be worried about whether or not it is impacting security, and that's when accreditation comes in.
Thank you.
Yeah, what do you think about SDLs? Do you think it has a good future?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think security token offerings are the future for American projects. They're the only way. I think what's really interesting is if you look at Blockstack, right? Their paperwork with the SEC is they basically said we're filing this because we have to, basically, right? Even though we don't think we're a security token, we know that we have to in the U.S. And then recently, actually last week, they filed a follow-up filing with the SEC. I believe it's called U-1, something like that. Anyway, saying that they're speaking to foreign exchanges for listing, which I find very interesting, right? Because it's always been the question, security tokens have no liquidity, right? But it seems like the SEC is saying, if you're an American project based in the US, you can only trade on what's known as an alternative trading system, an ATS. And right now, there isn't really, I mean, I know there's T0 and Open Finance, but those have no volume, no liquidity. But it seems the SEC is fine if you go on a foreign exchange that bans American investors, because they just care about protecting American investors. So if that's the case, so I'm very curious to see how that transpires over the next 1 to 2 months. But if Blockstack and props end up trading on Huobi, on Binance, or what have you, I think it's going to be a gold rush for American SDOs, because they have a pathway to listing like all the other non-American projects have had, if this is what the SEC kind of turns a blind eye to. Victor, how are you, man? Good to see you here.
Yeah, good to see you again. Thank you very much. Awesome work. My key question is around Africa. All right? Obviously, as you know,
Yeah.
that's my core concern.
Yeah, I last met him in Africa at the African Blockchain Summit.
Correct. So I was in Uganda, and obviously, as you probably know, I work with Dell, Cisco, and all that, like in Africa, right? So before leaving to go into the blockchain space. So my key question is, most of the things we're discussing today here in the Black Blockchain Summit is centered around, how we're going to grow the blockchain community, cryptocurrency. What's your strategy, basically, especially as it concerns Africa? And the reason I'm saying this is I flew in from Nigeria yesterday, and last week I was the Central Bank of Nigeria. And then I was speaking to one of the directors there, and they're very open to a lot of things. Africa is still very open to a lot of things, all right? So, and there's an importance, as you probably observed in Uganda, to have great synergies.
Yes, yeah.
Things can still evolve, and when I speak today, probably I'll show some of all those things. While some of those things are things America is still very hesitant about, but Africa is still very open to. So it's important. Why for Africa is that? For Africa, it's real. There's hunger. There are issues, and these things are solving it. And the government's ears are open because the people's voice are very loud. Okay? And that's why, personally, I always say that blockchain was created for Africa. So for that reason, it's important. So it would be good to know your strategy as well. Okay? How you can, what your strategy is and your plan to synergize. As you know, QBX has constantly been, with, and I want to give props to what, your team has been doing to support QDX. And we're closely working with regulators and all that. So what's your strategy so that we could see how we can take this, because it starts from there.
Yeah, I mean, so my strategy kind of initially was just to go there on the ground and see what was going on. Right? I didn't want to be that guy who comes in and claims to know everything, right, even though I've not been there in 21 years. So when I went there to Africa in December 2018, it was just to kind of see the lay of the land, right? I went to Ghana, Nigeria, Uganda, Kenya, South Africa, Egypt, and just seeing how people were using blockchain and crypto, right? And one of the things I kind of saw immediately all across the board was really exchanges, right? Getting access to crypto, right? That's why I definitely have been keeping tabs on your project, QBitX, right? Because I think what you guys are doing, trying to really build a global exchange, but catering to Africa, right? Because nobody's really doing that right now, right? Everybody's catering to North America, Europe, Asia. Nobody's building something for Africa, right? So I think what you guys are doing is definitely great. And then once I'm kind of gone there, just exposing people and my audience around the world to what's going on in Africa, right? So when I went there in July for the African Blockchain Summit, just bringing my content team and just documenting everything, right? Doing interviews with you, with other people, and just kind of showing, guys, there are people here who are actually working and building amazing things to bring blockchain and crypto to Africa, right? Because as our host said in Nigeria, right? This is the next frontier, right? Africa is the next frontier, right? As you said, right? Because the way the currencies there are, right? Blockchain and crypto was meant to help the unbanked, or the most unbanked part of the world is Africa, right? So I definitely agree with you on that. That definitely crypto blockchain is meant for Africa, and I think the main thing is once people like me and others start going there, right? We have to get more and more people from around the world to come to Africa. Because one thing I've noticed, there's so many people who talk about helping the unbanked, and they've never been to a developing country. So to me, they automatically lose credibility, right? Because one thing, when I went there, and I was there on the ground floor at events like this, hearing people talking about how they use crypto and blockchain and how it's going to transform their economies. Then going back to the messaging I was hearing on the ICOs in America or Asia that are going to help the unbanked in the developing countries. And I'm like, do you even know they can't even get onto an exchange yet? So how are they going to buy your token? Right? So let's first solve that problem, baby steps, before we try to go to the moon. Right? So I feel there's definitely lack of understanding from people in the developed world, right? And I think that will change if they actually go there on the ground and meet people like you and see the actual problems, right? And I think the problem you have is the biggest problem right now, right? What you guys are trying to solve. Yes.
All right,
How we
one
doing
more
on
question.
time?
One more question.
Okay.
The first 19 years of the 20th century, and I'm not philosophical, the parent body of the Universal Negro Improvement Association, the African Community League, had $1,000 coming into New York today. It appears to some of us that what's going on now is a centennial push from that period, but being able to solve the challenges that happened in that whole century till we go to the next 2 centuries. And interesting enough, it was to go to Africa, to build up Africa, just as what is happening today in terms of the unbanked. How do you see the business people, not so much just the political people, in terms of they moving forward with not skewing to go forward to Africa 100 years ago in a practical way through our children to go into 500 years?
Just to make sure I understand your question. So can you kind of rephrase that again? So how are we going back to Africa to
I'm not, it's always forward. It's always forward to Africa. Because people have never left. And I'm not being philosophical. I'm talking about having money. When J. Edgar Hoover mentioned that this so-called Moses had $1,000 coming in, and the British were doing what the British were doing, and the French were doing what the French were doing, and the Germans were doing what the Germans were doing. It was to block, just as you mentioned about the 2.5 million, that's about you and others have gained. How do you protect yourself from that happening over and over and over again? We were not in a position to protect ourselves because there were not certain things in play. It did not mean that the people were not headed that way. But we needed to have people who are in, or whatever it is, the various engineering. But engineering, I heard you mention about it strengthen your character.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have to have resolve, and you have to be, I mean, for me, I've always liked adversity, right? I never back down from anything. I always like a challenge, and I have supreme belief in myself, in anything, right? If you took me to the moon, I would build a rocket ship back to Earth. That's kind of the mindset I have. So anything I do, no matter what the stage is, the pressure is, I always know that I will find a way, right? So as you mentioned, when I got hacked, I mean, I knew it sucked, But I mean, there was no way to undo it. What was done was done. I had to basically find a way forward, right? I just said always forward, right? Because I knew that the past, at that point, the hack was very upsetting, and it was even more upsetting because I was planning to buy my parents a home, right? A nice home, like $1 million home. And I was planning everything, okay, saying, okay, here's this nice deposit that's gonna go down, and then they come like this, take away not just my money, but even the dreams I had for helping my family and my parents, right? And that was probably the most upsetting thing out of everything. But I knew, okay, this is a lesson I have to learn from, right? It's kind of like the world is telling me something, right? Let me take the lesson from this, store that into memory, and then move on, right? Because me dwelling in the past means I can't focus on the future, right? And me dwelling in the past means I have no future, right? Because I have to always be forward, right? If I'm busy sulking in my misery, right, then how can I focus on the future? So the only thing I had to do was just kind of say, okay, I've learned from this, let me move on, right? That's why when it kind of happened publicly, people didn't really believe I was hacked. Because they said, how can this guy not be upset if he got hacked, right? He must have faked it, right? Even though there's an FBI case on this and everything, and I'm getting updates on them, all right? But the public has no idea what's happening, right? They're what I call headline readers. They read something on the headline, don't even skim, don't even read the entire article. Maybe read the first paragraph and that's it. And they claim to know everything with no context, right? And nowadays, especially in crypto, there's fake news everywhere. Anybody with a blog can post anything, and because there's no regulation, I mean, they can really say a whole bunch of stuff. So even people who hated me, because back then, I was known as that guy who would kill projects, because there were so many projects I just called outright scams. So I know I have so many haters from so many projects that I basically ruined. Actually, I know about 2 weeks ago, one of my business partners, Ugo, reached out to some project just talking to them, right, saying, hey, how are things going? They're like, the company's out of business after you gave us a bad review last year. I was like, damn, right? But I was basically known as that guy, right? Because in a space filled with so many scams, I was the guy who was saying scam, 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 scam. I mean, I definitely didn't get everything right? I definitely had some wrong picks, right? But the idea was to filter out the bad projects. And by doing that, I also made lots of enemies, right? And that's why, especially when I went through lots of adversity, they all came out of the woodworks, right? Even some people who I thought were friends, right? They were there just kind of like happy to see me fall, right? And it definitely taught me a lot about me being in the public spotlight, especially as a young black minority, right? Because I know one time I was in Dallas, Texas, meeting a fellow YouTuber. He's an Asian guy. And he was like, man, nobody wants to see a young black guy talking about Lambos and Lamborghinis and making money, right? He's like, don't do that stuff, right? And back then I was like, yeah, I was like, you're an old guy, because this guy was almost 50 years old. But now I kind of see some truth in that, right? So nowadays I'm kind of more reserved, more low-key, less flashy, right? Because now I just kind of want to focus on just purely the analysis, right? Not really so much the flashy stuff, right? I feel like it was a phase I had to grow through, and now I've grown from that. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
That's
Well, we can talk offline. Okay. Thank you guys so much.
All right. Thank you, Ian. Great presentation. That was quite inspirational. Can we give him a big round of applause, please? Asante. Chris. All right. So we'll move on to our next keynote. We have Egypt in the house. Woo for Egypt. Come on, guys, Egypt. All right. So Sister Mona Hamdi will be giving a keynote on the blockchain hierarchy power and why black wealth matters. Karibu, Mona.
Assalamu alaikum.
So you can have the mic here.
I have a pretty loud voice, but I can, yeah, for the sound.
For the documentation.
For the documentation. So, you know, I believe very much in a creator who writes our destinies. So you were talking about philosophy and the future and where Africa is going, and those are all things that I am very concerned with. I am from Egypt. It's where I was raised. And I'm an ethicist and a futurist based at Harvard University. I look at the way future systems will organize around the societies and where our moral compass is shifting around the issues that we care about. A lot of that involves technology, and I've been involved in the blockchain space for a really long time, looking at the world outside of fintech and outside of crypto to see the way that it will help us as vulnerable and marginalized communities create a new order and a new system of organization in which people are equally represented and in which their voices are equal and distributed, which are, as you know, blockchain principles. So I think what I was hearing, first of all, I also have to say that we are at Howard University, and that always excites me. I have godsons who play football here as Bisons, and the lessons of Dr. Carr here about Egypt and about Africa are foundational and world-class and are a testament to our shared ancestry and fill me with dignity and pride of being Egyptian. So, you know, I get to Howard all the time. Let's see. So, yeah, I know, I might flip the whole thing over, right? So what do? So what does it mean to look at a future world system? We look at common language, we look at rap lyrics and comic books and parse huge amounts of data to see what people are thinking and what people are saying and what they're doing. And I'll tell you something about Africa. It is ignored largely by the developing world, but they're coming to build the infrastructure, as you know. Why? Because it's lucrative, just like Africa has always been. So a few statistics about Africa that are relevant to me and relevant to the world, which is safer, happier, richer, and less hungry now than it's ever been. And in the world that I live in, we look at 2050 as a metric for what the next 100 years will be like. So the world in 2050, what do we know about that? We know that Nigeria will be the third largest nation in the world. We know that the population will be almost 10 billion people. And we know that 86% of the world's hungry who live under $1.90 a day will be black. So while the world is getting richer, none of that. The 26 billion holders of wealth who comprise today the amount of wealth as the bottom 50%, 3.7 billion people, are all American, and none of them are black. So we know that wealth generation is increasing, but so is wealth consolidation. It is going into fewer and fewer hands, and fewer and almost no black hands. So what does that mean for the future of our planet when most of the world's people will be in the three large countries, India, China, Nigeria? Most of the world's impoverished will be from Africa, where I live. What does that mean? What does the world look like if the infrastructure of the systems of the world that you currently inhabit that persecute you or oppress you or make you voiceless are carried into the future, and how can you stop it? So to me, I look at the blockchain. I look at it in terms of sustainable development, and I look at it in terms of some of those philosophical underpinnings of what it does to inform the way that our human society should be organized. Namely, is it transparent? Is it constant? Is it reflective of the society? And is it addressing problems that are relevant to the people for which it is created? So while we are engaged in the crypto space, and that is a fantastic way to generate wealth, I would like us to redefine for Africa and for the world's black community what black wealth means. Is it just financial access and access to capital? Or is it infrastructure and systems and due process that reflect us and reflect our values and our nature and keep us safe? I see lots of instances in the United States even where there is asymmetry between the hierarchy and the structures of hierarchy and power and the manifestation of power. And that's one of the things that blockchain teaches me too, is that hierarchy and power are not the same. Because in a blockchain network, all units are equal. They're egalitarian, and they're equal arbiters of information that is parceled between them. But the power and the locus of power will change according to the application. society is moving kind of the same way too. The hierarchy, and I work with vulnerable populations all over the world. My background is in sustainable development. I've parceled out water rations to women in countries where there is war-torn masses of refugees fleeing. I've watched pregnant women with cholera parcel out water, deciding which one of her children gets water first. Today. So what will the future hold for people like that? For me, what I've noticed, and something that makes me worried when I think about decentralized social systems. It's a really great thing for blockchain. It's a very poor thing for social organization, because often what happens is that the people who are the weakest and the most vulnerable are the first to be exploited. You can look at revolutions and see this all the time. I'd like to ask the Native Americans how they felt about the American Revolution. And I know that Thomas Jefferson said that the tree of liberty should be watered with the blood of tyrants, but as Lin-Manuel Miranda told us, he was off getting high with the French when everyone else was in the trench. So what does that mean for the future of our society? And like, I had a deck that had like Mamunia Yusuf, like Mumu Fresh lyrics that I really want, but I just heard that she like raps like Andre 3000 and I can't, so I'm not gonna even quote the lyrics for you, but I do post all of my talks up with the links on Twitter and on my research page, so you can probably find her say this way more articulate than I could. But the point of the blockchain is building a social infrastructure where you don't get invited to the table because nobody invites you to the table, because it was your table all along. And that's the point of what blockchain can do, and the potential of the technology to ensure that all voices matter, because sometimes we dilute those voices too. Yes, all lives matter, but you know what? Black lives matter. They do, and they matter for the future of our planet, because when you disinclude those populations, you create weaker systems for all of us. And in order to ensure that our planet, and I'm optimistic, I believe in the future of this planet, and I believe in the future of our collective species, but we need all voices and all people at the table, and currently, it doesn't work that way. The data reflect that. That is objective, or data is neutral, lenses are not. I think that the data pretty clearly show that there are injustices that are embedded in current social practices that make sure that black people historically have less access to wealth, less access to due process, less access to adequate infrastructure. And guess what? Those are all great solutions that can be found in applications of blockchain. So what I would say is find ways to build social infrastructure outside of the crypto space that address the very problems that you care about, the very systems that keep social organization down. Because again, I don't know if revolutions are good for people who are 86% of the world's impoverished. I don't know if reparations will ever come. I don't know what the future will hold, but I do know that without the voice of a unified, thriving, equally represented society, we really have a weakened chance at surviving the challenges that we've created for ourselves. 86% of those people will be 90% of the world's hungry. And that's not even accounting for climate change. Climate change is something that here in the United States, we debate. We say, is it real or not? Outside, in the Arab world, we say, how much climate change is there? You see asymmetry between hierarchy and the manifestation of power in the United States every day outside of race, culture, and religion. When you have an sitting American president who is unable to legislate for gun control reform because of a powerful lobby, even though he's at the very tippy top of the hierarchy, there's power there that binds him from moving. You saw this when the previous US president went to Newtown. So how do hierarchy and power, and what do they have to do with black wealth? What is the definition of black wealth for the future, aside from access to markets, aside from increasing aside from fiduciary responsibility, and aside from generation of actual capital? To me, it's global wealth, and it's something that's going to be built with or without your voice. With or without my voice. It's going to be quite lucrative. If you look at the, I mean, that's why people are doing it. When you look at remittances, I mean, that's one of the very first ways. It's not surprising that we use blockchain. The very first applications of it were the very easy ways of commodification, because that's what humans always do with tools. We're a really innovative species at doing that, right? What comes next? That's up to us. The way that we use the technology, the way that we use those tools, in my mind, will make us stronger when we address those very prejudices, those very biases, and those very structural, it's called structural violence for a reason, because it embeds people and entrenches them in a system that they cannot escape from, or that they find is very high friction to escape from. The problem with that is that what we're seeing in the applications of technology today, some of those very same biases, prejudices, and violences are being interpolated into the technology of the future. Do you need proof of that? Is there a reason that AI doesn't recognize black faces? Is there a reason driverless cars can't see black bodies? Who's building it? Is it equally represented by black engineers? No. Where are those tech companies? The smartest people, the most innovative people, my father's a physician from Egypt, and he came to the United States. He was in New York, and he said that he founded a piece of cake. Why? Because in Egypt, he had to manually vent a patient with when the electricity went out. He was scrappy and he was a hustler, and I know lots of people from Nigeria, we were talking about the Nigerian example and the Ugandan example, who do that kind of thing every day. How will we innovate the future, making sure that all voices and all access at the table? We build the blockchain. And that's kind of the beginning of, and the end of my remarks. I didn't use the paper, that's why. So, yes. Hi.
Did you say blockchain or
The blockchain.
Okay.
Yeah, because you use blockchain to apply it to, and you know, I think it's about inclusivity and minority voice. It's financially lucrative, yes. Crypto is the very, very tippy top of that. Everybody needs to do that, because also generation of wealth generates impetus on the upward hierarchy of society, right? Like, it's one of the ways that you increase power. But there are other ways too. Like, imagine blockchain application in criminal justice reform. Right? Yes, hi.
So what is the first step or first use case to implement the blockchain?
Implement the blockchain. Well, we have to create it. I think the first thing that you do is we have to address some of the historic problems. If you feel that your society, for Muslims, for example, one of the things that or women, or in this case, since I'm at the Black Blockchain Summit, I really looked at some of the ways that it could be specifically used to address cultural, I don't want to say injustice, but I don't know another word in English to mean something like that. Like smart contracts, right? One of the things that I always found really fascinating about the foundation of the United States was that people who weren't allowed freedom were fighting for a freedom that they were promised and didn't get. That wouldn't happen in the age of smart contracts, right? Because the assets would have been held as collateral and they would have been instantly verified and transferred. So I wonder about all of those slaves who were fighting for a freedom that they didn't get and how long that perpetuated. What sort of things are happening today? Yes?
Two questions. One statement, but did you know Dubai in January, their whole government is going to be ran off blockchain?
That's right.
So that's one thing.
Yes.
It's sad to see how blockchain technology is not really a main topic in the States.
Yes.
But I was just telling somebody outside, that's showing you the decline of where we at. So like the people who take advantage of I've been in blockchain technology since 2008, but the people who get involved now, I mean, that's the future right there.
Yeah.
Because that's what I wanted to say. But then the question I had to you is, what's the difference between the blockchain and the blockchain? Are y'all building a separate blockchain that's for black people to be used for black people, or because you know it's ubiquitous?
Yeah. No, it's sort of a concept that I came up with our group to mean servicing specifically unique to the black community solutions that are outside of the crypto space. Criminal justice reform for me in the United States would be one, right? Or again, with those Mumu Fresh lyrics, or Narsi, an Iraqi Canadian artist who talks about this all the time and talks about systemic injustice. Anybody who wants to know about the misapplication or the asymmetry between hierarchy and power has to remember those words, I can't breathe.
I just had a comment because you keep using blockchain, but I just wanted you to know that Isaiah Jackson, who spoke yesterday, who has the book,
Black People, right.
Blockchain is one of their companies.
Yes.
But it, it's encompassing all the elements that he talked about in creating blockchain solutions at churches and this.
That's exactly right.
So I don't know if you were in contact.
No, not at all. But I know that because so I work with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and with the Dubai Government Summit in creating those sorts of social infrastructures, not necessarily for Dubai, but like I said, for the world's bottom 2 billion now, and then for the 86% of people in 2050 who will make less than $2 and who will be perpetually hungry. So food security is something that's really big for me, right? And for where I live in a hyper-arid region of North Africa where food and water access will only, and we have the dam between Egypt and Ethiopia, and those issues will only be increasing for our people. But I remain optimistic that collectively we will be able to innovate a future. So the idea of the blockchain came to, aside from the fact that it's a really pithy turn of phrase and that he has a book of, you know what I mean? I think it's, we developed that independently and then we came to know of each other. So my stuff at Harvard, and it's the same thing, and which should only say, but he gets full credit obviously because he made the book and I'm just a teaching fellow up at Harvard. But he definitely, that should say that there's something there, right? That what that means to me is that there's a consensus of solidarity and that within the community there is enough intellectual prowess and hustle. I mean, he just said he'd build a rocket back from the moon. I would probably like huddle up in a ball and freak out a little bit. But there's a lot of ingenuity in the space and that it requires that kind of unity of thought and unity of purpose. Because if the infrastructure isn't built by you, it will be built for you. And I promise you the same injustices that you see in the system now will carry into the future. But you have a voice. It's your table. And I say that to every group that I speak to. It's your table. What are you going to build with it? Humans tend to move in the direction that their eyes are facing. So what are we going to build together? And I think that's the point of the blockchain.
Let's have a question from Durad.
Yes.
Good afternoon.
What's your starting point for the blockchain? It seems to me like three primary points of friction as far as development in Africa are access to water, access to energy, and monetary instability.
That's right.
So where would be your inflection point? And the other question, or your starting point, and the other question, would your blockchain have interoperability with existing projects that have already used those as points that they want to develop solutions for?
Yes, absolutely. I think that it's not, I'm a very big believer in collaboration and open source. For me, I mean, what I think doesn't matter. I think what you have to really look at is what the population does. And you see it in marginalized communities all the time. What's the first thing that people do, Tone, when they get enough energy and they have a network computer? They don't create water infrastructure. They mine, right? Because we all know that the currency of power is currency. Right? It's the ability to exchange services and goods for some sort of reliable source to provide for you and the ones you love. Now, for me, it's different. For me, I'm not so much concerned with that because I know that we look out for that in and of ourselves. Crypto is the first and is the most exciting and the most and if you listen to any of the podcasts of most of the people in the room, like the wars between the different coins is something that's taking off for itself. My world in blockchain is underutilized. Like the potential of the technology is not being realized by the manifestation of the applications, which is a bad thing for infrastructure. But it's a good thing for the people who are going to rise up and innovate and create the solutions in the space. For me, probably because of the sheer lack that I work with and that I see every day, access to food and access to water, I believe President Mandela and I believe Gandhi when they say things like, a hungry man knows no God but his next meal. And so for me, the access to that basic human infrastructure, the ability to feed yourself is where I start. I started with water. I started with water security.
All right. Any more questions? We have time for two.
One question. some of the women, Dr. Wondarma died, as well as Shiva Vedanta.
Yes.
Working with women.
Yes.
And those women decided through families to plant trees.
Yes.
Millions of trees. How is it that the Bitcoin hierarchy and power can take its resources to rebuild up the lungs
Of the planet.
of the planet?
Yeah. Oh. One tree at a time. One tree at a time. Now, this is a very, very, this is a very sensitive subject for me. I think that Africa is the historically most exploited natural resource system on the face of the earth. I think that the stuff that we've seen coming out of Bolivia and Brazil, and I hate referring to all of the nations and peoples and languages and religions and civilizations and histories of Africa as one unified place, right? But for shorthand, you can argue that what's happening in the Amazon and what's happening in Bolivia will be equally devastating, but nowhere, I think, near as long a history of the exploitation that we see, and we're dealing with that sort of residue. Nobody's going to plant the trees for us. It's not coming, right? And often, when you're looking at allocation of energy and resources, environmental projects come way below human survival. And so to me, those are the things that are the most crucial. I think that civilizations and societies will survive because of our soil. I have a large-scale permaculture project that I did with our nomadic people, the Bedu, relying on no government infrastructure from anywhere along the path to prove that poverty can be made and poverty can be unmade. That when you take a nomadic people who have dignity and integrity and are tied to the earth and then settle them in an area, within 2 generations you create poverty. So we showed within 10 years that by managing those systems, by managing that ecosystem, you can reverse those conditions that we would call poverty, namely reliance on someone else, reliance on a government infrastructure for survival. The key is integration with the environment and nature and the soil. That is one of the crucial aspects for me of a revitalized Africa. I look at that in terms of the waterway for my own country. When I look at the way our 100 million people will be 140 million people, how will we survive with climate change, desertification, lack of water, water wars with the surrounding countries and the riparian treaties that have been going on for 100 years? We do it one tree at a time.
All right. Thank you, Mona. Thank you. So next up is our first baraza for the day, and it's titled Exploring Decentralized Inclusion in the Financial Sector. So I would request that the panelists come up. They know themselves. Victor? Valerie? Leah? And Tony. So we'll start by introducing ourselves and your thoughts on the topic for the panel. So we'll start from this corner. Yeah.
Can I just take this off? Hi, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay? All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Natasha Harris. I am a part of the National Society for Black Engineers, the DC chapter. I currently serve as parliamentarian on that board. I'm also a part of the National Black United Front DC chapter, and currently I serve as the Director of Field Implementation for Vagabond Vending, We're a small tech company that creates vending technology. So my thoughts on this topic, pretty much, I feel like Black people, we need to take advantage of anything that's decentralized because we've been abused in a centralized system, I feel like. So decentralization is something that is a part of our future. And I hope to get into more into that throughout this discussion.
Hello, everyone. I'm Valerie DeHia. I'm a partner at Perkins Coie Law Firm. Prior to joining Perkins Coie, I was at the SEC administering federal securities rules and regulations for over 10 years, and then prior to that, I was at FINRA doing likewise. I do a lot of work in the crypto space representing clients that are issuers, that are issuing cryptocurrencies, basically doing fundraising, which is basically the fundamentals of finance. And I represent a lot of clients that are traditional regulated intermediaries from national stock exchanges to broker-dealers, transfer agents, and clearing agencies. So I have a lot of thoughts and opinions about our underrepresentation in the finance space and some of the reasons that's the case and maybe some potential solutions for how to increase our representation.
Thank you, everybody, and thanks for letting me join this panel. You guys are absolutely incredible. My name is Leah Wald. I have been a partner at Lucid Investment Strategies, which is an asset management firm, and also we had launched a hedge fund that specializes in cryptocurrency investment, specifically Bitcoin, and more specifically investing your retirement funds in GBTC. At this point, I'm mainly consulting on the topic. So what interests me most about this panel when I got asked this morning if I could join, thank you again, is to, I guess, share my thoughts or demystify if this is just simply a buzzword, what it actually is, talk with the panelists about what is decentralization, is building on Ethereum for the projects that are currently listed, again, actually decentralized and actually good for our future? Should it just be built on the Bitcoin blockchain? And I guess just break it all down to, what's, fad from fiction, from important software development that actually will create financial inclusion and do what DeFi is supposed to do, which is decentralized finance that actually takes out the middleman and ensures that we can all join and participate and therefore have asset accumulation and therefore also take across and make sure that income disparity is not what it looks like today, and given Mona's talk, definitely is not what the current trend is for the future unless we ensure that we come in and make sure that that's not possible. So thanks for having me on the panel.
Hi, everyone. My name is Victor Akoma Phillips. Currently, I'm the Chief Operating Officer for QubitX. QubitX is basically a digital asset exchange based out in Africa, basically. But for us, the most important thing is the idea behind it. So personally, I have a background from the IT program management space. I've worked with Cisco, worked with Dell. That was the last place I worked before resigning fully to be part of this movement. And most importantly for me, the topic today, which is about decentralization, and also especially in the financial sector, is very important. Important in the sense that it's a very sensitive issue. Sensitive because you probably, in our part of the world, maybe in Africa, there's this thing where the banks, central bank, quote unquote, do not want to hands off the whole system. And then there are a lot of things that we take for granted, for those of us that probably, I live in Canada as well, that it's a luxury in Africa, for instance. You could actually, in the Western world, walk into a bank and actually do your transactions in less than, just a few minutes. You don't even have to go to the bank. But it's a big deal when you're in Africa. When you're in Nigeria, I wish I brought a picture here because I just got back from Nigeria some few days ago. You probably could stay in the bank for 2 hours, 3 hours just to deposit money. I mean, that is a big deal. And that's a waste of time, okay? And so I'm here today to discuss the real issues. Just like Ian Balina said, one thing is for you to actually say you want to solve a problem, another thing is for you to really know the moral fiber behind that problem. That's where you start to solve it. So it's not just a buzzword, like she said. So I'm here to hopefully reach down to the nitty-gritty of things, from having that understanding from both sides of the world. Thank you.
How's it going? I'm Tony Perkins, but you can get to know me as bank teller, giver of Tron. I started Bankroll in December, and it's one of the fastest growing communities on the Tron blockchain. And it's all around the world, and we're kind of in promotion mode, so that's why you know my face and know who I actually am in the real world, my alter ego as Tony Perkins. But started coding when I was 10. I was a computer scientist, went to MIT, computer science and business degree at BU, and 20 years in fintech, consulted a lot of different companies, but spent most of my time at State Street, which is institutional finance, of course, and also Fidelity. 5 years at Fidelity. I was brought in as a CTO there from Peter Britton, who is actually a mentor of mine, who's actually black, African, and is currently is CTO of personal investing. Worked directly, right next to Abby Johnson. Basically built her pet project, FidSafe. 2011. Met Roger Ver and Eric Voorhees, mined hundreds of Bitcoin, got doxxed, and lost my private keys on a laptop. I swore if I ever got involved in blockchain again that I wouldn't make the same mistakes, and I wouldn't quit. So here I am, multi-million-dollar revenue in a blockchain gaming network. I don't make as much as I made at Fidelity, but I do make 6 figures. And so decentralized finance is real. It doesn't have to be that serious. I'm telling you now that you can have access to this. Bankroll has been running for almost a year, and we just released a token. So it was making money before there was even a token. I designed that token to be accessible. It is not a security. It has supply dynamics similar to Bitcoin. Well, actually, mining will last longer than Bitcoin. It's the #1 traded token right now behind Wink, which was released on Binance. So there's a path to Binance. There's a path to access. Working on an exchange now. So that there'll be trading pairs for the Banker token with Ethereum and Bitcoin. So there's no access to capital issues or anything like that. The only reason I'm here is because there are great people here that have done the work of getting blockchain to the people. My focus has been building the shit. So
no cussing,
let's get
please.
started.
No cussing, no cussing. Okay. All right. So from your own personal perspectives, what do you think is the biggest hurdle to sort of financial inclusion and decentralized financial inclusion in particular? So we'll start again with you, Natasha.
I think the biggest hurdle, and I think we've all said this word today, is access. Being able to actually access the appropriate information. I feel like there's a lot of misinformation out there. And the point of this summit is to get the correct information out to everyone. We need to all act as agents to spread the correct knowledge so people are able to access all the tools that they need to be successful. Just in general, I'm originally from Newark, New Jersey, and growing up in Newark, a lot of financial conversations weren't had. You kind of find yourself in a cycle of not knowing certain information or certain financial structures growing up. So I think the biggest thing is being able to access that information, and not only access it, but be able to teach it and spread the knowledge accordingly.
So yes, I would absolutely agree with that. I would say that it's probably twofold: education and access. So one, having a fundamental understanding of, what is it that you're investing in, and then how do you invest it, the basics of the time value of money. Just basic financial literacy is something that is a barrier to basically access. And then I think that on the finance side, it's twofold as well. It's the issuer, so the entities that are seeking to fundraise and having access to capital and liquidity. And then on the second side of that is investors. Oftentimes when you see an IPO, general retail investors aren't able to participate, especially pre-IPO. It's only the biggest, the best, and the baddest that have access to really, and that's where you really start to create, you start to accumulate wealth. So I think that when you look at those two sides, it's, from the people who are looking to fundraise so that they can create companies, and then the people who are looking to invest in those companies, having information about potential investment opportunities, but also for the companies, being able to access potential investors and provide that education. So,
Valerie, just sorry to interject, but what about the regulatory space, regulations? How does that affect?
So yes, the regulatory environment definitely complicates things. And I think that, one of the speakers was talking about Africa and how in Africa, I actually think you were talking about Africa and how the government is very open and receptive. So there's a substantial difference though. When you look at the US capital markets, they are the most revered markets on the planet. The SEC is concerned about protecting a multi-trillion-dollar market, and the greenback is still the reserve currency of the world, at least for now. So when you're thinking about the regulatory environment in the US, there is a very high bar to entry. Whether you're from an investment standpoint or an investor standpoint, or whether you're an issuer. It is difficult, and I think that you see this playing out a lot in the crypto space, and I heard Tony saying that his token is not a security, and there's so much discussion around what is an investment contract, and usually, so the Securities Act defines what a security is, and it's a broad definition. But then you have this opaque, highly complex area that is not clearly defined, but is as a result of case law, the Howey test. So when you look at real estate or a Ferrari, nobody thinks that those are securities. They're like, it's real estate, it's a car. But if you package it and sell it a certain way, it becomes a security. So there is this very detailed facts and circumstances analysis that has to be done. And there can be extreme impacts to investors. So if investors purchase cryptocurrencies or crypto tokens, and at some point the SEC sends a subpoena to that issuer, and as soon as that regulatory process kicks in, at some point, all of the exchanges that are listing those tokens have to take them off because they're not registered as national securities exchanges under the 34 Act. So there's significant, in the US especially, there are significant barriers based on the securities regulations. And I think it starts out with trying to figure out, is it a security? If it is a security, it becomes far more complicated.
Thank you. Also, just a note on that, I was reading the news this morning, I guess like 3 hours ago, the NASDAQ just started listing under DEFX. You guys saw, which is actually tracks popular DeFi-focused tokens. So interesting. My first foray into my career was, if I could use a personal story, was at the World Bank in the Sub-Saharan Africa region prior to the restructuring, and luckily under Obi Ezekwesili, who I really see as a mother, Nigeria. She has done a lot, and a lot of people, so she's currently the Minister of Resources, specifically focused on oil before Minister of Education, but a lot of people don't know that she founded Transparency International as well. She has done a whole lot. And from her, I learned a whole lot about the unbanked, a lot specifically about Nigeria. If we want to talk about DeFi, I was there when M-Pesa really started taking off in Kenya. And so when I start thinking about hurdles, and I couldn't agree more with both of you, access and I think education. And when I think about OBI, I think about also access to the right people who want to help. I think one thing that's very difficult is that there's a lot of great people in the world that want to help, that want to do good, that want to access people on the ground and help the unbanked, that want to help those in the myriad of issues that we see in the developing world, but aren't able to, don't know how to, or have strong men, neo-patrimonial dictators that ensure that they don't. Right. So I'd say one of the biggest hurdles is getting the right people, or things that I would like to see, a challenge that I would like to see overcome is getting the right people, the right information on the ground to be able to truly educate and also finally start doing what this revolution is that we're trying to have happen here. So I'll stop there.
Thank you very much. My interest is to know, Obi Ezekwesili happens to be an advisor to Cubitex.
Oh,
we met her as well, and I totally agree with everyone here, but I'll put a bit of slight perspective to it. And the perspective is this. Even though you have access, and then you're not able in Africa to show people real stuff, you probably not really gain that, should I say, traction you want. And we actually exemplified this. For instance, in Nigeria, as a case in hand, if I wanted to move money from my bank account to your bank account, I'll probably be paying like 57 naira 50 kobo. Okay? So that actually means that there are charges that I have to pay, which actually necessarily is not my fault, but there are guys in between, which we call the middlemen, that you have to pay. Then we set up our wallet. Today, we're able to move actual money using the blockchain. And guess what? We cut it down by 95%. And people can now move money and from one bank account to another bank account, leveraging the blockchain platform we have. And you know what that means for that person out there? 57 naira. Bread costs probably, I could buy a bread for 20 naira. That means I could buy 3 pieces of bread. That's what I'll pay. Now, that is what the average person out there wants to hear. So at the end of the day, the real stuff, life. So when I'm able to tell someone in reality that I am giving you back 3 bread, that sounds more realistic. So when I get an access to someone, I now need to bring it down home. To what does it translate to the everyday life of someone out there? And that's why I was listening to something on the plane when I was flying down from Africa, Nigeria, down here, and someone said, who's your enemy? They actually told him that, hey, a thief came to your house. And then the guy says, hey, I'm much more scared of my neighbor than the thief. And then he says, why? He said, because the thief is just going to steal things, but my neighbor is going to steal my time because he's going to want me to spend more time with him, talking to him and everything. So I'd rather avoid my neighbor, but I'm okay if the thief comes, he's only going to steal things. And now why am I using this as an example? The reality about it is that in this blockchain space, for us to combat decentralization, we all need to come together. Today we hear a lot of things where we're all doing things in pockets and all that. If we're going to actually get out there, we all need to have something like this more often, where we're able to address the real things, the breads, where we're able to look at all of that, combine it. But of course, even though it's a movement, there needs to be a move. And that's what we're talking about here. You know what I mean? And that's why when we started Cubitex, we first of all strategically looked for people like the Obi Ezekwesilis, because they, and all that. We looked for payment gateways that actually have the essence and value. That was why out of 27 companies that came to them. They actually picked Cubidex that, hey, all of you left Amazon Web Services, Cisco, you all left British Petroleum, resigned, and you're chasing this. Then there's a blood. I was telling John before I came, I said, if a blood doesn't drop on the floor, you ain't gonna get life, bro. So that's the thing. And those are kind of things we need to look at. So I think start from the people, you leverage on the access, and make it real. Definitely the voice will speak out eventually. Thank you.
So I wanted to talk about one thing in relation to Bitcoin and mining, and why Ethereum and smart contracts in particular, or Tron, or pretty much anything blockchain that supports smart contracts is superior to Bitcoin. And it's actually related to what Mona was talking about in the previous keynote. If energy is a problem in Africa, guess what? Bitcoin's not for Africans. Right? You should clap because so Bitcoin is a store of value. It's great, and you got to get plugged in and stuff like that. But it's not going to change Africa. It's actually going to just cause more problems. So if you really want to be a part of this Bitcoin game, you got to be a miner. You have to own that part of the blockchain story. And if you're not going to do that, you have to have a token or economics that work for you. So that a lot of what happens on the Ethereum blockchain and blockchains like Tron is important with smart contracts, because obviously you can replace mining with staking. And I think staking is going to be huge. Like, for example, if you take Banker token, if you can give that Banker token to someone, they can immediately start staking it, and they can immediately start earning. So if people want to start buying bread, all you got to do is just send them some Banker, and then watch. you can buy a lot of bread. So the Banker token is like 10 times. It's not a fraction of a Tron. It's actually worth 10 times Tron. It's the price of the Banker token is the average of all of the trading volume and the prior mining that's happened, mining difficulty as well, the inverse of the mining difficulty. So that means that basically even right now, it's going to trend towards like 100 TRX, which is basically $1. So so once again, you can buy a lot of bread. I think you can buy a lot of bread with $1. Right. So the issue in particular here is that I think staking in particular is and smart contracts is much more valuable than say electricity and mining, because you don't have access to it. So I just wanted to bring that point up.
All right, so I have a question actually for you, Tony.
Yeah.
Do you have to mine Bitcoin to benefit from it? Because I think we have to challenge you on saying that Bitcoin can't be for Africa if we can't mine it, but yet there's utility in.
You can trade. You can definitely trade. You can definitely trade into Bitcoin and use Bitcoin as a store of value. But I would argue that tokens like Maker and other tokens on the Ethereum blockchain and others that pay dividends and so forth are way more valuable than bag holding Bitcoin. So the goal for Bankroll in particular is not some store of value, but actually our mantra is cash flow for all. So we're literally building on-chain systems and plugging into other businesses on the blockchain and drawing those revenues in for the community, so that people don't have to, they don't have to trade, they don't have to know about mining, but yet they're collecting, they're tapping into the economic activity. So for example, on Tron, what we're actually doing is, Tron is actually known as the casino coin, right? There's so many casinos on Tron. Well, guess what? That's an on-chain business model. And for Bankroll, we have partnerships with many of the casinos, or informal partnerships by literally buying their coin, taking those dividends, and then paying them out to the participants in Bankroll without necessarily being exposed to gambling.
All right, okay, let's open it up for a few questions. Any question? Yes, Todd? Oh. Yeah. Oh, all right. Oh, okay.
Do you mind if I ask you a question?
Sure.
Okay, just because you brought up Maker and obviously Ethereum, ERC20s, and smart contracts, doesn't it worry you that DAI has recently shown that it is not stable? And therefore, again, you're saying that, you know, building on the Bitcoin blockchain is not the way to go. I would actually say that Bitcoin is the original DeFi, but I would love if you could speak a tiny bit more about how, you know, it can be justified that building on the Ethereum blockchain is better than Bitcoin's blockchain when stablecoins such as DAI that you brought up have proven not to be stable.
Right. So I've talked to that team quite a bit, and one of the things that I always asserted was it's not necessarily valuable for DAI to hold the peg of the U.S. dollar. For one, the U.S. dollar can't even hold the peg to itself. It's continuously going down in value every day. So. And as well as all currencies around the world. So maintaining a constant peg isn't the issue. What we want to do is we want to be able to trend up and down around some number. And so, you know, for example, right now the interest rate, the stability fee for DAI has, you know, gone from a low of like 7 to a high of 21, and now they're bringing it back down to 16.5. We've been voting on that. So I think that as long as it's a little bit above $1, that's great. And so the point is these are dynamic systems, so you can't say that like holding an exact value of 1, you know, for a system that was just, you know, built a couple of years ago, you know, that's not unreasonable. So I think that you know, DAI is fine. While we do bring up that ecosystem, though, and we sort of talked about the black chain or whatever, I think that that's a very I think that basically whether it's Bitcoin or whether it's Maker in particular, these are systems that are built and are permissionless. So you know, speaking as a black man and speaking as a technologist in space. Those are there to be used right now. We don't have to reinvent the wheel there. So, you know, so one of the things that, like, for example, for Bankroll, we will be going to the Ethereum blockchain. We will be integrating with, you know, more mature DeFi systems. You know, Tron is great for cash flow and for actually being able to tap into volume. But you have to basically look at what each blockchain offers. Bitcoin obviously is great for just being able to tap into the fiat system. So, right, you know, so you basically have fiat on-ramps that are mature for Bitcoin. So you obviously want to be able to trade your token against Bitcoin. But as far as, for example, loans are going to be a big deal. And you have access to loans right now. You don't have to wait. All you have to do is just tap into Maker, into Compound. So those are some of the things that we're going to be working on next. And yeah, very easy. Like all of this is actually like here now. And so it really is just more about education and the building culture. But we are very close, and it's more about like you know, really mobilizing these currencies and putting them to work, because no one, the guys that are building, you know, don't necessarily care about, you know, the challenges in Africa, but everyone here does. So all we have to do is just start taking some of these tools and like actually put them to work. You know, get Banker into people's hands, get Bitcoin in people's hands. Like, we have a very giving culture. Like, we, you know, on day one we were just giving away Banker. But yeah, so I don't know.
I think let's just have a couple of questions. We're running out of time, so I'll start with you, sir.
Yeah, I had 2 questions. That's the ERC20 token that you created?
A TRC20.
TRC20?
Yes.
Okay, and you were saying that it's on Ethereum?
It's on Tron, but it's Solidity, so it's the same thing.
Oh, it's a Tron one?
Yes.
Oh, okay, you want a Tron ecosystem. Okay, so the part that you said about Bitcoin not being for Africa. Are you talking about? Getting the mic, but I can speak up a little bit. But I'm saying the part that you said about Bitcoin not being for Africa. Why would you say something like that when like Bitcoin is like ubiquitous, like the first token. Like you don't have to mine it. Nobody's mining Bitcoin no more. So
People are mining Bitcoin.
because it's too expensive for the energy and stuff like
Nope.
that. Right? But I mean, but nevertheless, but I just want to know why you say that that Bitcoin wasn't good for Africa. I got one more other small question.
No, just keep it to one question.
I think that's a great question because
How
I can
could you
say
get involved?
right. So it costs infrastructure. You have to have infrastructure. You have to actually have the mining hardware. You have to have the energy, and you have to be able to take a hit in terms of the actual cost. So right now it costs $7,000 to mine one Bitcoin, and it is profitable right now for miners because they're making a 30% premium. They're making an extra $3,000 on the current price of Bitcoin, which is $10,000. There's very few people you can't take Bitcoin mining to communities in Africa and say, hey, you're going to be profitable and sufficient and be part of the actual direct financial system, the Bitcoin financial system. Within these blockchain technologies, it's very important that people are involved in every aspect of both the creation of the token and the dissemination of the token. If you cannot create the token, you're at a disadvantage. So basically, anyone who cannot mine Bitcoin is at a disadvantage. So yes, it is great for you to be a bag holder, but I don't believe in bag holders. I believe in cash flow. I believe that, if you watch Shark Tank, if you watch Mr. Wonderful, what does he always say when he's judging these businesses? He says, do you have cash flow? So, we're not waiting on this big bull run. We're not waiting on Fidelity to save us, right? And to pump our coins. We actually want to put this to work, make business for ourselves. Yes, Bankroll is making a lot of money off of degenerate gamblers, but that's still a business.
All right, last question.
We're going to have to, at some point in this whole system, move to a grassroots area in dealing with this, because the average people that are going to make this thing work by adopting it and by taking it into their lives, they don't care nothing about whether you part of the IMF or you went to Harvard or MIT or you sitting here at Howard.
Exactly.
In Detroit, we moved to cannabis. Recreational cannabis. But the little dope guys on the corner still selling bud, $5 a bag, and they're selling heroin. So what they do is, instead of taking the money and stick it in the mattress because they don't got no bank account, what they do is they take that money and they go to the Bitcoin ATM and they buy Bitcoin. So you stack about $500, you go buy $500 worth of Bitcoin. You flip it to Monero so they don't know where it's at, and that's how they're working it. So the average person, they don't care nothing about this. They're not trying to build a business. They're not trying to merge with this company, Fidelity and all that. Don't make no difference. We have to make this a grassroots movement where people can start using it, like this brother say, for bread. Be able to go in the grocery store and buy some eggs. That's what it's about. So we need to put this inside of this conference where people can come who are trying to deal with it on a day-to-day basis rather than create their own coin and sell it to you or sell it to me or try to give me some free coins and all that kind of stuff. That don't mean nothing. Not in the real world for regular people. Now, high finance people, that's something different. So we have to make a grassroots movement inside of this thing so it can become real.
All right. On that note, I think let's close this very interesting panel. Give the panelists a round of applause, please. Thank you very much. All right. So we're going to have a very short break for 10 minutes, and we'll be back for our next session. See you in 10 minutes.